What's going on YouTube? So the Pathfinder has long been an important part of Nissan's lineup, but there are many rivals in this three-row midsize SUV segment. That's why Nissan put this important product under the knife for 2026 with a refresh that touches many of the key areas. So is this now one of the class leaders? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's start things off with a quick spec dump. So a lot of people will be happy to know that under the hood, you continue to find, for 2026, a 3.5 liter V6 engine. It makes 284 horsepower or 295 horsepower with the Rock Creek trim level. It's paired to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and with four-wheel drive, it gets 22 miles per gallon combined.
Now, if you're looking to buy a Nissan Pathfinder or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, we need to talk about the exterior changes as well as the interior, so let's go ahead and get to it.
So let's take a look at the exterior design, beginning up here in the front. This is definitely a focus area for the things that Nissan updated, and you can probably tell that they have updated the fascias on the Pathfinder lineup. Now, there's going to be some different varieties depending on which trim level you choose. What you're looking at right now is the Rock Creek. That's going to be one of the more rugged trim levels in the lineup, and because of that, you're going to see some special details for this model, but all of them are going to get a more squared off fascia for 2026. We have the black grille here with the red Nissan branding. You have the prominent chunky design up here at the top, and then the Rock Creek also has a more aggressive lower fascia through here, as well as 0.6 inches of additional ground clearance, bringing your total to 7.7 inches. Now, as far as the lighting is concerned, it is mostly the same this year. You have standard LED headlights. These are a reflector LED design. You can see we have an LED daytime running light at the top, and then we have an incandescent turn signal indicator right there. You have these new accents, which are not lighting, but just kind of look like they're lighting. And then down at the bottom, we have LED fog lights. Moving on to the wheels, we have updated designs this year. They're going to range in size from 18 to 20-inch alloys. The top models, of course, are the ones with the 20-inch alloys. Here in the Rock Creek, we have the 18-inch alloy with the special design. Again, trying to look very rugged. What is actually rugged, though, is the fact that we have better tires on this one for off-roading. So this is an all-terrain tire. No underbody protection, though, on the Rock Creek. A little bit of black cladding around there. You have your Rock Creek branding with the little orange accent. Mason's told me this is orange. I am colorblind, by the way. And then up here at the top, we have a gloss black finish for the mirrors. Blind spot monitoring is standard equipment. Power folding is only on the Platinum.
Now, at the side of the Pathfinder, overall vehicle length is about 198 inches. If you choose this Rock Creek, it's a little bit longer, 198.8 inches. And as far as design touches, you will notice that we have blacked out window surrounds. We also have a blacked out roof. I'm really happy to see that's continued to be available on the Pathfinder because a lot in this class actually don't offer the two-tone roof, and I think it really spices up the design, especially when you choose a paint color like this. Also, I do want to point out that new for 2026 is Baltic teal, so that's a really cool kind of bluish teal color that they're adding to the lineup. Now, let's go ahead and head around to the back of the Pathfinder. Now, when it comes to the rear design, they really haven't changed as much as what they did in the front. There are a few subtle differences for 2026, but like I said, it's a pretty small update back here. We have a spoiler up here at the top, we have a rear window wiper, and then through the center section we have some black trim, some more of that orange accenting, and let's take a look at our taillights. So our taillights are going to be partially LED. We have an LED brake light as well as some LED accenting. However, our turn signal and reverse light will still be incandescent. I'm a little disappointed by that. I wish Nissan had updated that to give you maybe a more modern and fresh look with full LED lighting. Pathfinder spelled out across the back, And then down here at the bottom, all of this is going to be finished in a matte black plastic. And for your tow rating, that's a really strong element for this model. You still keep the V6, and that means you have a 6,000-pound tow rating for 2026. Now we've got to talk safety as well. For the Pathfinder, you are going to get most of your active safety features as standard equipment for 2026. However, you do still have to go to at least the SV trim and up to get things like lane keeping assist as well as adaptive cruise control. But guys, there are arguably bigger changes on the inside, especially when it comes to technology. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, now let's move to the interior. Here's our key fob. It's the typical Nissan key fob. You have a standard intelligent entry system, and then remote start is included on all but the base trim. Getting inside, no sensor behind the handle, so just press that button there. That will unlock the door. And then we can check out the interior. So just like with the outside, we're looking at some fairly subtle updates, but I think they're important updates that are really going to help with the overall ownership experience. We'll start by talking about the seats. So you're going to have a few different seating materials you can pick from depending on which trim level you choose. You start out with cloth seats, you move to a leatherette seat, and then your top platinum will come with a quilted semi-aniline leather seat. This is the Rock Creek, as we've mentioned before, so it's kind of in the middle of the lineup. As such, we have a cloth in the center and then a leatherette on the outside edges, again with the Rock Creek accenting and design going throughout. As far as the seat controls, all but the base model will have power seat adjustment, but you will need to choose the Platinum to get memory seating. And we'll go ahead and climb inside. All right, and let's look around at the rest of the cabin materials. So over here on the door trim, we have a leatherette. Same leatherette is going to continue at the top there with the stitching detail. And then as we move to the upper dashboard, this is a soft touch plastic with leatherette all through the center section. And then you even have the leatherette running along the center tunnel here, which feels nice and solid. Again, this is a middle trim level, so I'm pretty happy with this overall material quality. And some of this does change when you choose the top model, like the Platinum. But let's fire it up with the standard push button start. Now with it all fired up, we can dig into some individual details and discuss some other updates. One of the updates is up here at the gauge cluster. Now I can't really show it off here in the Rock Creek because you can see we just have the traditional Nissan gauges with the 7-inch multi-function display in the middle. However, the full digital 12.3-inch cluster, that is now included for 2026 on the SL and the Platinum trim levels. Up top, you could find a head-up display if you choose the Platinum grade. And then as we pull back here, we have the latest Nissan steering wheel with that flat bottom design, the updated logo. It's manual tilt and telescoping until you get to the top Platinum. That's where it will be power adjusting. And then heating is included on both the SL and the Platinum. We also have that optioned on to our Rock Creek today. Now, let's take a look at our center console and storage of this interior. Nissan's done a good job of giving you a lot of places to store things, including right there in our center console, which is quite deep and has a felt lining in the bottom of it. We also have two cup holders, a little slot right here, and then a very large center pass-through, in addition to a passenger storage shelf. So everybody gets a little piece of the storage equation. Now, I want to highlight specifically what you see right here in the center console. This has a wireless phone charging pad. This is optional on the Rock Creek, and this is new for 2026, not in the fact that it didn't have a wireless phone charging pad, but this is the latest wireless phone charging pad. So this is 15-watt fast charging. You can see it has this elevated bump. This actually allows your phone to magnetically connect, with MagSafe, and also the elevation will keep it cooler while charging. So it should be a huge improvement over what we had previously. Now, taking a look at the shifter, it's the electronic design. Pull back for drive, pull back again if you want to shift manually, and you have paddle shifters on the steering wheel. When we go into reverse, you're going to see a standard backup camera or a 360 camera with the Rock Creek and above. As you can see, you got that overhead view and traditional view. Resolution is okay. And we also have some views that you can select. So when I go into park there, I can select the 3D spin, and I can now go all around the vehicle like you can on Infiniti products. Behind the shifter there, you have your electronic parking brake with auto brake hold, and then you have your prominent drive mode controller. Now, continuing our interior tour, next place we come to are the climate controls. Compared to a lot of the competition, we don't have anything fancy like putting them in the screen or anything like that. We just have the good old-fashioned knobs, which I think a lot of people appreciate. This is a 3-zone automatic setup, standard across all models. And then you also notice next to that we have 3-stage heated seats. That's standard on all of the base model. Ventilated seats, though, are just on the Platinum trim level. We also have a physical volume knob for our audio system. We just have the standard sound system today. There is also a Bose sound system, but that's just available on the SL and Platinum trim levels. Let's go ahead and hear the standard system. Now, Nissan says this system only has 6 speakers. However, it really doesn't sound too bad, so I think it might have a few more speakers than that, or at least a decent amount of bass that is delivered into the cabin. Now, let's talk about the display. I think this might be the most important update to a lot of people, especially if you had a Pathfinder previously. This is going to give you access to a lot more advanced technology from the Nissan lineup. So we've got the new 12.3-inch display that replaces the previous 9-inch display, and this is standard on every single version for 2026. Now, inside of this, we have the latest software as well, so that allows us to run wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then when I press into the home here, we can show you some of the other applications. This version doesn't have the Google apps built into it, but that is on the higher end versions. Up top, we have a manual dimming mirror, and auto dimming mirror is of course available. And then I'll slide back the sunshade for our panoramic sunroof. This is standard on just the Platinum trim level. However, you can option it on to lower trims, such as this Rock Creek.
Now we've got to talk about the rear seat areas for the refreshed Pathfinder to see if this is a class leader in that respect. Well, to answer your question, the legroom and headroom figures are unchanged for 2026. That does mean that we're sitting at smaller than average numbers for the segment. 35.5 inches of legroom, 38.4 inches of headroom. Like I said, that is smaller on paper than most of the rivals like Hyundai Palisade, the new Kia Telluride, the Grand Highlander, things like that will all be bigger than this. Now, of course, I brought along the official car confections. Really, part of the reason why I do that is so we can get a realistic knee room figure to see if those measurements are accurate. And we are still sitting at about 8 inches of knee space with the seat adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8". I'm 5'9" for reference, so that's really not that much behind the competition, but it's not going to be much of a class leader. Now, I can stick my feet up underneath of the seat, which is quite nice. And then also, these seats slide forward and back a good distance, and they can also recline a good distance for some pretty epic naps. Now, you may notice that we have captain's chairs on this model. That's going to be available on Rock Creek trims and above. It's an option that you can get. I don't think it's too expensive, and when you select that, you get the nice armrest here. You're also going to get this removable center console with 2 cup holders inside, a little bit of extra storage space, and like I said, you can remove it by grabbing a lever right here if you just want the walk-through. Now, as far as other features, we do have our own climate controls back here. You can also get heated back seats, but that's just going to be standard on the Platinum grade, and then we have 2 USB-C ports down below. If you look over at the door trim, we have a pretty basic one. It's hard touch on all the upper parts, so I wish that was at least a soft touch plastic. No rear window sunshades or anything like that. However, we do have a nice armrest with a leatherette pad, 2 cup holders, and even quite a bit more storage down in the bottom. And your rear vents do come out of the ceiling, which is pretty nice. And let's check out the third row of the Pathfinder. In order to get back here, it's pretty easy. You just press this button right here. That's going to tilt the seat up and out of the way. You would not have to remove a child seat, so I definitely like this folding mechanism. Some in the class don't fold as good as that. Let's go ahead and hop back here into the third row. Now, sitting in the third row, this is going to be pretty disappointing experience, especially compared to some of the newer offerings in the segment. We're looking at 28 inches of legroom and about 38 inches of headroom. The headroom is actually quite good for this segment, but the legroom, as you can see, is not very good at all. This seat is slid all the way back, so keep in mind you could scoot it forward a little bit more, but it's still sitting at about 4 or 5 inches of less third row legroom than some of the main competition like Grand Highlander and the new Palisade. That means I don't have any additional knee room. My feet can slide up underneath of these seats though, and the thigh support is also quite a bit lacking back here. There are 3 seats across, although I don't think you'd be very comfortable fitting 3 people back here. So that means overall seating capacity on this model is 7 passenger. And then as far as features, we have 2 cup holders here on the side. We do have vents, and those come out of the ceiling up there at the top. But aside from that, we're not going to have really any features. There's also not any USB ports on this model. So as far as how it rates on the third row rating scale, I'm going to say this is fit for either kids or the in-laws. Walking up to the tailgate, of course, we have a power one that's also available with hands-free function. And let's go ahead and talk about the cargo space. So kind of just like what I said with the third row, some of the other options in the segment have passed it up in terms of space. 16 cubic feet behind the third row, 45 behind the second row, and a maximum of 80 cubic feet. Now, by no stretch of the imagination is that a super small number. It's just some of the rivals are bigger. Palisade, Grand Highlander, Traverse, all of those options will be pretty much bigger than this. And speaking of those options that you may be looking at, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. The reason you should do that is because we've actually gone through all the options in this very competitive 3-row midsize segment and ranked them in the most important categories to this type of shopper, things like third row, cargo capacity, interior technology, powertrain choices, and value, so you can see your best options in each of those categories. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, definitely take advantage of that. Now, back to the Pathfinder. When it comes to features, you have a manual folding third row, so you just have to pull these little levers here, and that will allow you to fold the headrest down and then pull this, and that will fold the third row of seats down. There are not any handles to fold the second row, so I will have to go up there and do it manually. And now that I've got those seats folded flat, let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. So overall cargo length, 82 inches behind Drew's driving position. He's 5'8". From behind the second row of seats with them slid all the way back, about 45 inches of length. And from behind the third row, 16 inches. It's actually quite wide for the segment, about 49 inches wide. And then the height is coming in also pretty good, about 31 inches in height. Let's also get our load in height. That's also going to be coming in at 31 inches. Now, underneath of the bumper, you do have a spare tire. And underneath of the floor here, you have quite a bit of additional storage space if you can't fit it just behind the third row.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what is under the hood of this 2026 Pathfinder. Now, a lot of people, including Mason and I, thought that for 2026, this would probably go to the variable compression turbo 4-cylinder engine, like its sibling, the Infiniti QX60 already has. But that's actually not the case. So Nissan decided to stick with the 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6 engine. It's the same as it was last year, so that means you still have 284 horsepower and 259 pound-feet of torque. If you choose the Rock Creek model and run with premium fuel, that'll be bumped up to 295 horsepower. Now, as far as some other elements to talk about, we've got a 9-speed automatic transmission from ZF. And of course, you have a front-wheel drive version as well as an all-wheel drive version. Now, as far as the combined fuel economy, you're going to be looking at up to 23 miles per gallon combined. You can also get 21 mpg combined if you choose the Rock Creek model. And I should point out that Nissan is not adding any hybridization or other powertrain options for 2026. So this is the only way you'll be able to get this Pathfinder. Now, we, of course, really like to bring you guys the latest and greatest content to our channel. That's why we wanted to go ahead and walk around this 2026 Pathfinder as soon as possible. However, we will have to wait a little while longer to show you the driving impression. So the date that you see down below, that's when we'll be able to take this Pathfinder out on the road, show you all the performance and compare to all the competition with things like our sound level reading. So make sure you come back to our channel at that date down below.
Now's the point in the video where we normally talk about pricing. Now, unfortunately, at the time of us filming this video, we don't have the prices for the Pathfinder. Nissan has not released those official details just yet for the 2026 model year Pathfinder. However, we do expect it to remain very similar to the 2025 model, which represents a pretty good value for this segment, especially on the higher end compared to some of the higher end rivals. Now, if you're looking to buy a Nissan Pathfinder or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. Now, if you'd like to take advantage of that, we have a link to that in our video description down below, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. And that wraps up our in-depth review of the refreshed 2026 Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek. If you enjoyed watching this video, which we hope you did, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family, and we have a lot of fun on this channel. I promise you won't want to miss out. I also want to remind you that we have actually done a walk around of the Pathfinder Platinum as well, so if you'd like to check that out, you can already find that live on the channel. If you're already a fan and subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.